How are we all tonight? Beautiful afternoon it was. Okie dokie. We're just going to wait for a couple more people to jump on, guys. I'm really excited for the next stage of our journey here on our in our group page. I'm really excited, actually. All right. So, all right. For those of you who don't know, I'm Wayne Jessup, the property bloke. We've been chatting about some basic property investment stuff that everyone should be aware of for the last few months, probably since I think about December. Now, what we're going to talk about now is what basically professional investing techniques. Now, the biggest thing I have to say to people before, whether you're watching this now, whether you're watching it later, however you watch the lives we do, sometimes people watch these through YouTube as well, for those guys who do not have Facebook. Now, guys, everything I'm going to talk about from today forward is what we call professional investing. So you have to be aware that if you don't have any investment properties, I never recommend to start with this sort of stuff. You really want to get started with building your foundation, which if you look back through our videos, I'll show you how we do it here at the Property Bloke. But when it comes to a certain point, as an investor, you want to grow your portfolio a lot more confident. Sorry, I'll start again. Your confidence builds. So you want to start becoming more of a professional investor and potentially give up your day job or night job, depends on whatever you're doing. So feel free throughout the night, this next 20 minutes or so when I'm explaining what we're going to do, feel free to ask questions, put them in the comments. So I've got, hey Leanne, how are you? So if you've got any questions, punch them into the comments here. At the end as well, Jess does put into the comments a 15-minute Calendly link. And what that does is it links straight to my calendar with what you can potentially book in with me for a quick chat. My guys, let's get a crack along. So tonight's basically a summary of what I'm going to talk about over the next several months. And a lot of the subjects we're going to talk about could be over 2 or 3 separate weeks, so more than just one part. I will be breaking them down to make sure you get as much detail as you possibly can. Putting it into practice is another thing altogether, but I want to try and open your mind, get your juices flowing with what style of property investments are out there. I meet a lot of people every single week, and a lot of them have no idea of what we're going to talk about over the next several weeks. They haven't even heard of it, let alone how do you put it together. So for the next tiny bit, I'm going to be just breaking down for you what we're going to be putting forward. So no fancy slideshow tonight. I haven't got that. I'm just going to be talking my head off to you. So let's get started. So with professional investing, obviously professional investing comes with a lot higher risk in most cases than traditional investing. So you have to be fully aware of the risks before you enter into that. But like everything, you have to understand what is your risk tolerance, where your comfort zones lie, and everything we're going to talk about over the next several weeks. You don't have to do everything. It's about trying to work out what you want to do, where you feel more comfortable, and where you think financially where you can go. So let's get started. I've got a bit of a list up here, guys, so I don't forget anything. So the first one obviously is the obvious one. Everyone watches the TV shows, like The Block, etc. So the first one I'm going to chat about is a renovation. Now, renovating is not for me. I'm going to be straight up with you there. But with renovation, you can make money if you're good at it. And what we're going to be breaking down is different ways of being able to accelerate or potentially increase your margin with a renovator's job. So it could be a simple cleanup. In some cases, you may add a bedroom to the property. You may add a bathroom to the property when you do renovate the property. Sometimes you'll take out a bedroom and actually put a bathroom in place, take walls out, make the property more open, etc., etc. Where I believe most people are very successful in renovation is when you take a 2-bedroom home from the bottom of the market in that 2-bedroom home where it obviously needs some work, etc., and you create maybe a 3rd bedroom, but you take the 3-bedroom. So you're basically taking a 2-bedroom home from the bottom of the marketplace of a 2-bedroom criteria into a 3-bedroom home at the top of the marketplace of a 3-bedroom property. So there's more chance there to make a lot of margin. And of course, renovation is very common as part of another strategy. So I'm going to come to that with multiple strategies later. But it could be just a part of another strategy just to increase your return on investment. Okay, so the next one we're going to roll over to is small subdivision. Now, when I talk about small subdivision, as I'm talking about small, that's where you might get one block, and what we do is split that into two, or we call it a 1:2 transaction or a 1:3 transaction. We make one block of land, might already have a house on it, and you might cut the backyard off and on-sell that land just as a full subdivision. When people sort of think, when I say the word subdivision, they're thinking of 20, 100 blocks, where I'm not talking about that. It's more subdividing. And boundary realignment is something I will talk about on a regular basis. Boundary realignment, for those of you who have not watched previous videos, is where you basically buy some backyard or side yard from your neighbor, and boundary realignment can actually create fantastic returns. It's not that hard to do. And of course, small subdivision could be a duplex as well, just a simple duplex, and building that and on selling it. Then we're going to roll into what we call small development. Now, I'm not one to really investigate large development. It's not something I'm ever really interested in. I would prefer to have 3 or 4 small developments going, lower your risk rather than have all your eggs in the one basket with a large development. Everyone's different. I'm just expressing my opinion. And of course, everything's general in nature. It's never directed straight to you guys. So small development could involve a triplex. It could also, a triplex. A triplex is basically a duplex, but 3 properties, not 2. But it could also cover you off on a small townhouse development. So that might be what we call a 4-pack or a 6-pack. We get 1 block of land and build 4 or 6 townhouses. That's what's just a quick in and out, small development process. You don't get too much negativity from neighbors, depending on where you're doing it as well, because you're only doing it in a small sort of aspect. So that's small development. And then of course, we're going to go into property options. Now, property options, so not auction, but we're going to call it options. People think I say auctions. It must be my slurry words at times, but property options is where it's a very inventive format of, instead of buying a property under the normal contract of sale, a property option leaves you open to so much versatility. So very often you'll hear the words no money down deals. That's all done through property options. No bank loan needed. That's done through property options. So if you're basically, this can work for some people where they might have maxed out on their borrowings with the foundation of their portfolio. They can then head into property options where they don't need bank finance to do that. They just need a little bit of capital behind them, and buy and sell without stamp duty. So that's where you might buy a property with an option and on sell that same deal to somebody else, and not ever take ownership on that property. So that's also a fantastic structure to do. I do love that structure myself. That does get yourself into a little bit of a medium to high risk when it comes to professional investing, but it's definitely something that makes good money. And with property options, you're limiting the risk on the transaction, because depending on how your option agreement's worded with the person who you're purchasing the potential property from, you're going to limit your risk in that transaction, because the way you want to word the document is that you may not have to take ownership on that land. So if, for example, you started to do a bit of a transaction and you found a green tree frog or something, or the council declines you because of some reason, you can walk away from that development, and then all you've lost is any money you've outlaid in part of the transaction. You're not committed to buy the property, you haven't paid stamp duty, and yeah, you don't have big extra costs from a loan you may have put together as well. So property options are something I'm really in love with. I love property options, but that'll probably be over 2 or 3 weeks. It goes into a fair bit of detail, property options. The next one we've got here is share housing or rooming houses. That is basically, it's not student accommodation, so everyone thinks it's student accommodation. It doesn't have to be student accommodation. For those of you who know me, I do a little bit of room sharing myself as part of my portfolio, and we use that as one of our cash flow strategies, because it's, in a way, it's similar to a property option. So an option agreement with, say, a vendor selling their property gives you control over their property, okay? And control of the property and not taking ownership is a gold mine to try and get when you can. But as long as the deal that you put together is a win-win for everybody, you will have a long-term business doing those strategies. With rooming houses and high cash flow strategies, that's where sometimes with a strategy that I do personally, which is rent to rent strategy. That's where you may rent and then re-rent the property to make a margin. Same thing again. You don't own the property. So it definitely has its advantages, and it definitely does have its disadvantages as well, because obviously if the property goes up hundreds of thousands of dollars, you don't get any of that money whatsoever. But it gives you control over the property, and you can get a cash flow strategy putting it through. And again, no bank loan, no stamp duty, just a lease, where there's a 3 or 5 year lease structure you've got going on there. And of course, when we do the rooming houses, I'm going to share with you a couple of specific floor plans that I've put together for myself and my clients, to potentially where you can just room share the property comfortably, but still go under the council regulation when it comes to it's not a boarding house. You're just room sharing the property out. And of course, some of these strategies I want to talk about are basically you're creating, in a way, you are creating a small business. So you need to have a little bit of education around it, because you can't go, really deep into something and then realize, I've got a tax issue, I've got a GST issue, whatever it might be. You want to make sure you do run this whole thing as a little bit of a small business. Obviously, your first 1 or 2 transactions, that might not be the case. But once you feel confident and you really want to do a certain 1 or 2 strategies, you should be definitely getting accountancy advice to make sure you structure correctly. And a big one for me is multiple strategies. So we're at the end of our several weeks putting together, we're going to be going through multiple strategies. So what I mean by that is there's 2 ways I mean by that. So what I mean by the first structure is a multiple strategy is on one property deal. So if you've got one property deal, having multiple strategies on that one deal will definitely limit your risk, and it will also give, in most cases, a much higher return on investment. So if you were doing a split, if you're doing a splitter, so that's what we do when we might take one block of land and turn it into 2 blocks of land. You might do a small renovation on the property, whether it's at the front of the property or the back of the property on the existing home that's already there. And then on the land you have subdivided off, you potentially could build a duplex or just a house or whatever it might be there too. So what you've done is there you've got 3 separate strategies in that one property deal. So I really enjoy doing multiple strategies. They work so much better than just doing the one strategy by itself. And for those of you out there who think, how am I going to get the money to do this? I don't have enough funds. I don't have enough cash flow. But some of you may have the knowledge to be able to put all this together. That's where we delve into what we call joint ventures. So what a joint venture is when you get someone else to join you in the property transaction and obviously share the money at the end. And some people, that's your best option to get started. And that joint venture partner could be a parent. It could be a brother, could be a sister, because you've got the knowledge. You might know how to find the sites, but you don't have the money to physically put it together, but you've also got the time. So when we go down to joint ventures, we'll be talking about capital raising. So that is about how you get the money. And the biggest thing with joint ventures is there's many different types of joint ventures. So you've got obviously capital when you're putting in cash. Some joint ventures are just on servicing the loan. So you might be able to obtain the loan, but you don't have any funds to service or pay the repayments. So you might have a joint venture partner with that. You may have a joint venture partner who actually goes and finds the property for you. You might have a joint venture partner that has more experience than you in a certain structure or development style. So you might employ them or engage them into that one as well. So joint venture for some people is the way to get yourself started into what we call professional investing. But of course, there's risk, and you're going to do a lot of research on your partner, and also very, very important, have a very strong joint venture agreement. Now, with that joint venture agreement, it has to state what the return on investment is going to be, how much money is going in, how much money is going out, timeframes, exit strategies. There's so much about a joint venture that, sure, it can be very fruitful, but you really have to be careful, guys. Now, guys, I don't have much more to talk about. I just wanted to introduce you to what we're going to be talking about over the next several weeks. But does anyone have any questions actually about this before we do a bit of a short one today? Does anyone have any questions for us today before we go too far? I don't have a lot more to talk about, sorry guys, tonight. I just wanted to break down what we're going to go through over the next several months. And I do believe this will probably take us up comfortably into Christmas. I'm going to share some of my own case studies that I've personally done in these ones as well. Let's go. All good, guys. But guys, Jess has our 15-minute link in there. So if you want a quick question before we start these strategies, feel free to book in to our 15-minute call. I'll have a quick chat to see whether or not you do qualify potentially to be a professional investor or two people put together. But this is what our elite members do. Our elite members are the ones that actually do more heading into the professional investing status that we mentor through that process. So guys, yeah, all good. All right, guys, I'm Wayne Jessup, the Property Bloke, bringing real property with real strategies to obtain real results for the everyday Australian. Thanks for watching tonight, and I'm really excited with sharing over the next several months some professional investing tips to get your juices flowing and to basically help you guys work out what you can or can't do within your own comfort zones. Thanks, guys, and have a good one.